thank you so much for having me here. This is so fun. I always say I have the coolest job in the world. I'm a labor economist at a workforce intelligence company, and I literally get to play around with some of the best data out there. So if you don't know about us, we're workforce intelligence, basically trying to understand what employment looks like at any company, what they're hiring for, who are they hiring, what does their workforce look like, and all of these things. When Jacob Clemente came to me and asked whether I wanted to do this presentation on the 10 ways the workforce is changing, I thought this is such a great assignment because we write a weekly newsletter with my team and basically sort of pick a cool topic du jour, and basically this is like a collection of our best of the past year or so. Let's see. I really should have put this last. Ignore this. We're going to actually just dive straight into the first takeaway. And I'm going to have to speed a little bit to make it through the 10 ways in which the workforce is changing in 10 minutes. So let's go. First takeaway. Well, the workforce isn't changing all that much at all. Because truth is that nothing's happening. Nobody's hiring, and nobody's going anywhere. So in terms of the things that are changing is actually not that much. I just want to do a quick plug here for RPLS, which stands for Revelio Public Labor Statistics, which is our new freely available to the public data offering that we started publishing in the way of macro statistics. And we've been doing that for 2 months now, and this month it came in particularly handy. So I've been a little bit more busy also, as Svenja said, than usual in terms of answering media inquiries. Another way in which the workforce is changing, and we've heard this topic before, is the rise and fall of DEI roles. And this is obviously driven a lot by the political climate. But yeah, some of the work we've uncovered is that the actual role of the DEI officer basically peaked in 2022 and has since declined by 15% and probably more by now. But also, not everything has been lost, right? So since the protests in 2020, there's been sort of this big rise, and there's still hope, and obviously the trajectory of travel is in the wrong direction, but also we've made strides that haven't all gone away. Another way in which the workforce is changing, and I'm jumping around wildly in terms of topics I'm realizing here, but here you go, is that nobody wants to study history anymore. And I think that is a dangerous place in history to be. I'm German personally, so I'll just leave it at that. You'll make your own inferences from what I have in mind here. But yeah, I think a workplace in which students aren't, getting the general education and learning how to think about past events in history is not a great one. And I also think it has a lot more to do with sort of the over-specialization of the workforce, as opposed to sort of a general knowledge worker that knows how to deal with a variety of things, which is probably the skills, as we've heard many times already today, that would be needed in this day and age. Another really interesting trend we've observed is that, remember that first chart I showed you that nobody's going anywhere? Nobody is going anywhere except the newer workers. So it's actually senior workers are staying. So people that have had at least 1 year of tenure, they've always stayed longer, right? But this bifurcation of these two lines is sort of a new trend. And employers are having a harder time retaining newer workers at faster rates. So something to think about in terms of how to retain your newer workers, because I think succession planning harder than ever without any fresh blood coming in. A topic very close to my own heart, no foreigners, no innovation, in light of sort of recent policy changes around the H-1B program, for example, which is a major path to how a lot of this innovation happens. The share of patents granted to foreign-born workers is ever increasing, plateaued a little bit there recently, but yeah, basically, some of the foundation on which this country is built for sure. I kind of promised I wouldn't talk about AI, but if you follow me, I can't help myself. Squeeze in a little bit of AI talk here. But I'll just say that AI is already changing occupations. What we're looking at here is a plot at the AI exposure in job postings, so the extent to which AI-able tasks appear in job postings, and that's declining. So that means there's already a reaction to basically not putting in the job requirements, the thing that the AI can do. So we're already changing. There's already a little bit of occupational transformation happening, essentially. Then, and I think this is something that will resonate, and many of you here in this room have written about, is the white-collar jobs recession being stronger than the blue-collar one. Here we're plotting wages in particular. So a rare moment in time where blue-collar wages have actually outpaced in terms of growth white-collar wages. I do believe if you look very, very closely now in time, and this plot is a few months old, that this trend is reversing now again, though. So I think we've sort of come to an end of this trend, and I think these two blue lines might be crossing back over in the most recent months, but don't quote me at that. Another interesting way. So we're in this moment in time where nobody's hiring, nobody's firing, and yet workplace satisfaction is at the lowest level it's ever been. So these are sort of the three lines that are like impossibly low and yet keep going down and nothing's happening, right? You'd think that at some point if people are so unhappy they would actually leave, but they're not. But what we've actually found is that in a cooling labor market, culture actually matters more in terms of what people care about in their workplace. So we do a lot of sentiment analysis on employee reviews, and culture and basically the way in which people work together matters more. Why? Because you're sort of stuck in the place you are. There's no opportunities out there, so you might as well like the place that you're currently in. So for everyone thinking about like employee listening and people analytics, I think that's really quite a takeaway here. As opposed to when there's a lot of opportunities, people care more about opportunities and compensation and things like that. Another really interesting trend, and this is something that's actually been going on for years, but has I thought would have accelerated more, but actually it's just something that continues happening, is that US companies are offshoring white-collar jobs. And they're especially offshoring white-collar jobs faster that are remote suitable. So, actually companies realizing that you don't need that team of consultants in the US. You can have that in India and have that be more cost effective. So that is something that's really happening. And yeah, that's sort of probably part of the current macro macro situation that we're in is due to that, at least to some degree. I look at that with 30 seconds to spare on my last slide, which is that Gen Z shops around more for the right job. So even when we compare Gen Z today to what Gen Y and Gen X and the boomers were doing at their age, they're still changing jobs relatively more. So they're changing more industries around, and they're on their what do we have here? I can't actually read my own slide. 2.7th company already, while boomers only ever make it to 3.6 companies. So back to the slide around newer employees staying around. That's certainly related here. But yeah, there's sort of this energy, I would say, to not settle and explore for the right fit. So I think there's something to be capitalized on here. Time's up. Slides are up. 10 key takeaways. I should have probably put this slide last. If you want to take a quick screenshot and subscribe to my newsletter. That's all.